Hey everyone, I think we have everyone here on our team. We will go ahead and get started. Good evening and thank you for joining us for this virtual community meeting. My name is Laura Miners and I'm the planner and project manager for the project with the City of San Jose Planning Division. Today I'm joined by Councilmember Pam Foley from Council District 9 and staff from the Planning Division, the Parks Department, the Department of Public Works, and the Department of Transportation. Staff joining today from the Planning Department include supervising planners Pat Kelly and Jennifer Piozze, and members of the environmental team, Tai Chow Lee and Kara Hawkins. Before we get started, I want to go over some housekeeping. Number one, when you entered the meeting, you were automatically placed on mute. During the open forum, if you would like to speak, you'll be prompted to click on the raise hand feature and you'll be unmuted one at a time. Because of the number of participants, staff will be taking 5 questions at a time to provide the most participation. If you have joined by phone, you'll be prompted to press *9 on your phone. Each attendee will have 2 minutes to speak. If you would rather type your questions, please use the Q&A feature. The co-host will be monitoring the questions and reading them aloud. Each question will be directed to the appropriate staff to answer live during the meeting. Number 2, you can access the agenda via the link provided in the postcard notice or by following the instructions on the screen. Please refer to page 5 of the agenda, which outlines the code of conduct. Please adhere to this code. Number 3, this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available upon request. Number 4, this is a community meeting, not a public hearing. Therefore, no approval or denial of the project will take place today. Property owners and tenants within 1,000 feet of the project site will be mailed a public hearing notice at least 10 days prior to the hearing date. The meeting agenda is now shown. Welcome, introductions, and agenda overview is number 1. At this time, I'd like to introduce Councilmember Pam Foley. Councilmember, a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to listen to this presentation from the developer on the Cambrian Park Plaza and to listen to the staff presentation. This is an opportunity to offer feedback and your public input. It's extremely important that you offer your input, and my staff is here as well, and we will be taking notes of the comments that you make. While this is the first city-sponsored meeting and potentially only city-sponsored meeting, this is not the only meeting that will be held in conjunction with this. I know there's been some information out there that this is the only meeting. This is not your only opportunity to give information to us. We will continue to seek information from you and host as many community meetings as is needed to address any questions and concerns and issues that you may have. Whether you wish to meet individually, as a small group, a large group, of course, virtually via Zoom or other ways. We're not meeting in person, not yet. Maybe we will be able to sometime at next time, but I want to assure you that there will be lots of opportunity for public engagement. This is the only large planning meeting where you're going to have information from all of the city staff. Future meetings will include my staff and others, but right now this is the largest meeting that will hold all the city staff. I want to take an opportunity to thank Mike Smithwick of the Friends of Cambrian Park Plaza, because the proposal that you see before you was in a large part came from his recommendations and suggestions made over several community meetings well over a year ago. So that was taken into consideration by the developer through my office and through with the architect, who I'm sure is here to present the plan. Here's what we've heard from you to date. You want to see a reinvigorated Cambrian Park Plaza. You want to see a destination place with restaurants, something that sparks joy, gives you an opportunity to wander around, sit, watch the children play, lots of parks and open space. You want to be able to walk or bike to it, have a coffee in the morning, shop, watch sports games at a pub. We want this place to be activated. We want to have lots of people there enjoying themselves and enjoying the space. And the developer has created a plan with over 7 acres of open space. They will go into detail of that. The plaza has a lot of parking, which was necessary. You asked for that, and most of that is underground. And you want a project that mitigates traffic. We haven't seen how that will happen yet. That is one of the major concerns that we hear from the community, is how will traffic be mitigated? And I'm not sure that will go into detail here because we do not have the traffic plan, the traffic study yet, but when we do, that will be very important for us to hear. I know that there are concerns about height of the main building, and we have a few other issues or areas that have been expressed to concerns through us, through the survey that we have taken and that others have taken. Also, I know very near and dear to your hearts is to preserve the carousel. I want to assure you that the carousel will be preserved, as will the farmer's market. The plan is to incorporate the farmer's market in as well. Many of you love the farmer's market and plan to continue to use that, and this space will open that up for that as well. And a personal favorite of mine is to make sure that we have vibrant and a good mix of restaurants and things to do. But one of my favorite shops is one that's already at the Cambrian Park Plaza, and that's the Heartbeat Cafe. So I'm hoping that we get to see that. I want in the future plans. I want you to know that my office is always open to you. If you have any questions or concerns, comments, please let us know. My role is to sit here, listen to you, and take notes. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Council Member. I'd also like to point out and acknowledge Jennifer Piozzi at this time and recognize her extensive work previous to 2020. Thank you, Jennifer. She is on this call as well. And then right now we'll do the staff overview, followed by the environmental scoping overview. Then the project applicant will present the project, and we will open it up to public comment after the applicant's presentation. The site is located at 14200 and 14420 Union Avenue, right there on the corner of Camden and Union. The site area is 18.13 acres. It's right now existing the Cambrian Park Plaza Shopping Center. The general plan land use designation is neighborhood community commercial, and it is also within the Camden Avenue, Hillsdale Avenue urban village plan area. And the zoning district is currently unincorporated to be zoned to CNPD Plan Development Zoning District. The project description includes an annexation from the county into the city, a plan development pre-zoning to CNPD Commercial Neighborhood Plan Development Zoning District, and a plan development permit to allow the construction of the proposed project. And here's the scope. It includes a mixed-use building, building 1 on the corner, with retail restaurant use on the ground floor and multifamily use above. Building number 2 is the hotel, has up here 229 hotel rooms and 4,600 square feet of commercial. Building 3 is the assisted living. It also includes 25 townhomes, 48 single family homes, 7.1 acres of public open space, and 1,469 parking spaces. Here we have a little bit of a side-by-side comparison of the project changes over time. In 2017, we had the plan here to the left, and the current plan is here to the right. The site has been completely redesigned to emphasize pedestrian use. We've also, the applicant has also decreased the height. Over here in the 2017 plan, there was a couple of 7-story buildings, I believe, and over here, the max height is 6 stories, and that is here on the corner. And it tapers down as we get to the single family homes. And the parking has all been moved to underground. So we don't have the surface parking anymore. We only have a very small amount here on Main Street, and the rest of it is underground. And here's some numbers for you, for those of you who like numbers. We have, looks like we've decreased the number of hotel rooms. We've increased the size of the assisted living. We've decreased the other commercial use. We've added single family homes. We've decreased the townhome count, and we've increased the apartment count. As far as residential units, it was previously 44.3 DU per acre, and we reduced it to 39.9 DU per acre, and we increased the parking. So here is a summary of the permit process. First step, the applicant submits the plans to the planning department. Second step, planning review and other review concurrently with the environmental review. During this review, the project is analyzed, and then we take it to this community meeting, and we hear what the community has to say about the project, and then the process kind of loops around back over here to project analysis, and we here at the city will analyze any resubmittals to see how well they implement any relevant comments that come out of the community meeting. Then when it's approved, it goes to one of these processes, planning director, planning commission, or city council. This particular project will go to, I believe, planning commission for the annexation first, and then city council. And I believe it will not go to director hearing. So here, the starred list items are opportunities for community participation. So this first one here is this community meeting. Environmental review, you'll have a chance to comment on the environmental report. And at the public hearing, you'll also be able to attend and provide comment during the public hearing. And I am going to turn it over to Kara to present the environmental scoping meeting slides.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kara Hawkins, and I am the environmental project manager for this project. I just want to apologize in advance. My upstairs neighbors appear to be doing a little bit of home renovation. So if you hear any odd noises coming from my end, I apologize. So the purpose of the environmental scoping section of this meeting is to explain the environmental process, receive any comments that you may have on the document scope, and provide additional information on how you can continue to be involved. Many of you have attended the joint community scoping meeting that was held in March of 2018 for the previous iteration of the project. Because of changes to the project description and updates to certain environmental thresholds since the 2018 scoping meeting, we chose to recirculate a new notice of preparation and come back to the community for your input. Next slide, please, Laura. So the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA for short, is a state law that requires local agencies to analyze and identify the environmental impacts associated with projects and to avoid or mitigate those impacts if possible. To align with CEQA requirements, an environmental impact report, or EIR for short, is being prepared to study the physical impacts of the proposed project before you tonight. The EIR will study a broad range of resource areas, including key resource areas that the community has shown concern for, such as aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, land use, noise, and transportation, as well as more that aren't listed. The potential effects of the project on the transportation system and traffic have been a significant community concern for this project that you all have brought up to me so far. I just wanted to let you all know beforehand that a transportation analysis is being prepared for the project and will be reviewed by myself as well as the Public Works traffic team. The transportation analysis analyzes both VMT impacts that are a CEQA threshold, and it also contains a section called the local transportation analysis, which focuses on operational elements such as vehicle circulation, parking, queuing, and some intersection impacts. Technical reports are being prepared for other major resources sections as well, and I will be available to answer any questions about the methodology for those if you have any. The EIR will study environmental effects of the project, include mitigation measures for reducing impacts, suggest alternatives to the project that could avoid those impacts, and analyze the cumulative impacts resulting from this project and other projects nearby. Next slide, please, Laura. So at its core, the EIR is a document that serves to comply with CEQA, which we are doing right now by preparing the analysis. It also serves to receive public input, which we also hope to gather from you tonight during the NOP period and throughout the review of that document as well. Lessen any impacts and inform the decision makers who will ultimately be deciding on the project outcome. Next slide, please. For those of you who are joining this meeting on the web, the current slide contains a short flowchart of the general EIR process. The project is currently under the first step, which is the public comment period of the Notice of Preparation, NOP for short. The NOP public review period and this scoping meeting are to gather comments and concerns from the public and other regulatory agencies regarding what you all want to see analyzed in the EIR. The NOP is posted online if you would like to read through it. The NOP period is usually 30 days, and for this project started on October 26th and will run through November 25th. The next step, which is also occurring right now, is the preparation of the draft EIR itself. When the city and the consultant feel that the draft is complete enough to release to the public, we then move on to step 3, which is the draft EIR being circulated for 45 days so that you all can review and comment on it if you choose. After the public has reviewed and commented on the draft EIR, the fourth step will be responses to those comments, and the first draft amendment will be prepared by the consultant and reviewed by the city. This will include text changes, responses to comments, and any additional analysis that we feel may be needed based on your comments. The fifth step is that the first amendment and responses to comments for that EIR will be posted at least 10 days before the public hearing. Please note, for those of you that are able to see the flowchart that's on the screen right now, the exact hearing body process for the project approval is still being decided. So steps 6 and 7 may not be the exact hearing body processes that the project will go through. And just to reiterate, step 1, which is the NOP comment period, step 3, which is the 45-day public circulation of the draft EIR, and step 6, the public hearing period, are the stages where you are encouraged to provide formal comments on the EIR regarding the analysis or any issues you see with the EIR as it relates to this project. However, even outside of those steps, you are welcome to provide additional comments on the project itself in any manner at any time to both me and Laura. I'd like to note that written comments via email or a letter are preferred, as it's just easier for us to include in the record to the decision maker. Next slide, please, Laura. With that, my contact information is provided on the screen, but we will bring it back up at the end of the presentation as well for you to take it down. I will be taking notes on all concerns brought up during the meeting tonight to be considered as comments for the NOP. I am also available by email and can return any phone calls during normal business hours if you would like to discuss the NOP or any part of the environmental review itself. I look forward to answering any questions you may have during the open forum portion of the agenda, and I will now turn the meeting over to the applicant team.
Hey everybody, my name is Sean Morley and I'm one of the Weingarten Realty's local team members. I'm responsible for coordinating community engagement. Good to be here with you this evening. On behalf of Weingarten, let me share how pleased we are to present this, what I think is an incredible urban village signature project for the Cambrian community. I want to take just a minute to answer a really basic question, which is how did we get here? Let me take you back to the fall of 2015 when we held our first community meeting to introduce Weingarten as the new property owner and share our goal, which remains true today, to find a redevelopment plan that meets city requirements, fulfills community desires, and also achieves Weingarten's goals. The community feedback we received that night was pretty incredible. We heard loud and clear that people wanted to create a heart for Cambrian with a mix of uses on the site, not just another neighborhood shopping center. We presented a preliminary plan in 2016, met with many groups and conducted a comprehensive survey which generated over 900 comments about what the plan should include. This led to our first formal application for a signature project in 2017 that generated even more community feedback. And in 2018, our team recognized we still had some significant work to do. So we took a full year to dramatically re-envision the center's future. And guided by new city design goals that we received and a concept plan generated by neighbors last year, we've created what we think is an innovative new signature project for Cambrian. It's a truly mixed-use village, which will become the heart of the community. We look forward to getting input tonight about how the village plan can be even better than it is now. And there will be plenty of other opportunities for community dialogue in the coming months. If you want to participate with us, you can check out our project website. It's Cambrian Park Plaza shoppingcenter.com. This is the best place to connect with us, and we really do want to hear from you, and we will get right back. Again, it's Cambrian Park Plaza shoppingcenter.com. You can also contact the planning department and they'll be happy to refer you to us. With that, let me introduce Ken Rodriguez. He's the master architect for Weingarten's mixed-use village signature project for our quick presentation. Ken, take it away.
Good evening. My name is Ken Rodriguez. My firm, Kenneth Rodriguez and Partners, KRP, as some of you know, are pleased to present this project tonight. I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly because you can see all of these drawings on the city's website. And sometimes it'll be better because you'll have a chance to really study those drawings, formulate questions. And as Sean said, please submit those to the website and we will address those. So I want to take everybody quickly through these slides. We have 7 major design goals. You've probably read them as this was up on the screen, so I won't go through each one of them. But for me, as a planner and an architect, we really took a lot of the community input that I have heard over about a 1.5-year process that we've gone through here. And as Sean said, really created a signature project for this intersection. It is really a village with a combination of uses and a real mixture of the architecture. So let's go to the next slide. Our site plan, as other members have said from staff, is a mixed use village, with the corner being retail and residential. We've created a very large urban plaza in the center of that. There'll be a gathering place for people, outdoor seating, restaurants, fountains. That leads directly to the corner of Camden and Union, both visually and physically, and then back in through what we call the community park. And that community park is a series of different experiences, and then broken down into smaller sub parks. One backed by Wyrick, a proposed dog park, and sort of people space looking out over this large open space plaza and community garden park area. And then we have a series of other smaller parks for different experiences for both the neighborhood and for the public that visits the project, as well as the residents that live there. As Laura mentioned, we have single family residential that backs up to the existing single family homes. Those are homes with 2-car garages, driveway aprons, and then some small street parking for visitors to those homes. The townhomes, which are right down at the right-hand corner of this slide, open out onto additional parks and gardens. We have a community garden. We have some child play areas. And then we have this long sort of linear landscape feature that connects everything through a beautiful walkway right off the assisted living building, and then some additional outdoor seating areas. The building up at the upper corner is a hotel with a cafe and rooftop garden, dining area that looks out onto the park. And then we have just a small series of parking similar to other mixed-use projects that you may be familiar with, Santana Row, Main Street, Cupertino, so that we, one, can have morning deliveries for all the restaurants and retail shops. And then we can also have some parking, and then those elements could be closed off. And as council members said, farmers markets and other community elements could happen in those areas. All of the parking, as staff has mentioned, is placed underneath building 1 and building 2 and building 3. The only areas that don't have underground parking are the townhomes, which have 2-car garages, and the single family homes that have 2-car garages as well. Let's go to the next slide. This is the site plan, and for those of you who are really detailed, this gives you dimensions. It gives you where the driveway aprons are for the single family. It gives you an entrance to the projects, both off of Union and Camden, and then also how to get to all of the underground parking that's dispersed throughout the site, underneath both the hotel, the mixed-use project, retail, apartment project on the corner, and then the assisted living parking that's underneath that use. Let's go to the next slide. These are some character studies and sketches that we did early on to sort of give an image, and I'll just walk you through a few of these so that you can visualize these. And this is from looking basically from the entrance at Wyrick back to the community park area. The restaurant that I talked about on the right-hand side, that's right off the hotel with its rooftop garden. The assisted living on the far left-hand side with an outdoor patio space overlooking the park area. Sort of an amphitheater element in the middle for community events. And then the mixed-use project beyond, that's the retail and multifamily. So let's go to the next slide. So this is pulling in a little bit tighter with that sort of amphitheater open space in the middle. You can start to see the plaza with the palm court in the center of this really nice village and restaurant retail shop area that we're creating right at the corner building number 1, and then the open space, green space that will be in the foreground for community members, neighbors, and people who use the project and live there. Next slide. This is taken from the plaza space, looking back at a few of the small restaurant shops that are in the middle of the plaza. You can see we have outdoor dining. We have sort of beautiful little pavilion buildings with the project that surrounds them, a very European land plan. The Palm Court is a signature piece that literally just sort of is in the middle of this really nice open space plaza area. You may be familiar with some of these small pavilion buildings at Santana Row or at our project that we did at Main Street, Cupertino. These are the kind of places that we like to create where people come, sit outside, watch people, and really have the type of entertainment venues that are very successful today. Next slide. This is a sketch from the corner, sort of standing in the middle of Camden and Union, right on the corner, looking back into the portal, the Palm Court that I talked about, where those two small pavilion buildings are. Retail on the ground floor that opens out onto the street edge, as well as to the interior plaza, and then residential component on top. Let's go to the next slide. This is the hotel structure that's up Camden to the east. It's got a corner lobby feature that works or is opened to Main Street, that small loop street that surrounds building number 1. We've created outdoor balconies, a lot of animation in the elevation, different materials, stone, wood, plaster, really trying to create a real village feel here. Let's go to the next slide. This is a rendering from Union Avenue looking northeast. The townhomes are on the right side of the project, and they address the street edge and have all of their garages and access into internal courtyard, vehicular courtyard spaces. And then you can see the assisted living project next to it, the park area that comes out to Union Avenue, and then the mixed use project beyond. Next slide. This is our pedestrian circulation. I won't go through it because it is quite intense. I want to thank our client Weingarten and the community for pushing the boundaries here and placing all of this, the majority of this parking underground, which is really the big idea. It really allows, as the council member said, almost 7 acres of open space on a 17-acre site, which is tremendous. It's something that really excites us as planners. And then we have a whole series of pathways and walkways here that we're showing that really, the connectivity is quite nice, and a place you could really want to walk through and feel very comfortable about all of the open space and the various uses. Next page. And this is the vehicular circulation. As staff has mentioned, we only really have 2 streets. We have a public street up at the single family that comes out onto Union and out at Camden. And then we have this Main Street concept, which, as I mentioned, right at the parking garage entrance where the arrows are between buildings 1, 3, and 2, we'll be able to close off that street to various community events and center events that, again, just encourage that pedestrian connection. Next slide. And this is one that I would encourage everybody to take a look at on the city's website. We go through and break out the public landscape area, public hardscape, private commercial open space, and private residential open space. Those totals are an amazing 10.6 acres. And I would really encourage you to sort of look at that. And for those of you who like to dwell on the details and get down into these sort of tighter drawings, this is one I would really encourage you to take a look at. Next. We've used, as I mentioned on the, when I was looking at the sketches or presenting the sketches, a variety of different color palettes to to really be sort of warm and again, more with that European character. Stone, a variety of different stones, a variety of different plaster finishes, textures and colors. We use brick, wood siding, a vertical, horizontal, Ipe siding, and then have some really nice architectural features, canopies, and canvas and aluminum. Next slide. I think that might be it, Laura. If it is, I'll turn it back over to Sean. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. We've got 2 or 3 landscape images that I would really like to just go through quickly. These really show this European plaza that we're trying to create, some images that we pulled from various other projects throughout the world, and how we have tried to transform this plaza into a unique landscape feature, fountains, outdoor seating, unique landscaping, areas that are shaded, areas that are sun for every type of different experience. And then these retail and restaurant shops that open back out onto the plaza as well, onto the street edge. Next slide. These basically show some of the fountains. We have sort of an interactive fountain similar to Cesar Chavez Park in downtown San Jose for kids to play in. We've got fountains that you can sit by, or very close in the plaza to the restaurant areas, so you can actually just sit and listen to those fountains helping mask some noise areas and then taking full advantage of the shade and trellis features that we're proposing. Next slide. And these are just some quick images of the types of park experiences that we have: outdoor play areas, outdoor areas that can be converted to various different types of activities, yoga, badminton, croquet, outdoor seating areas, dog park, and then really nice lush landscape public street that runs along the entire single family housing project that abuts the park. So next slide. And then just some continued elements of some of the outdoor play areas, bocce areas, the amphitheater, and then other trellis and outdoor seating areas. And I think that might be it. I may have one more. Yes, and some additional slides. I wanted to point out, as the council member said, we are relocating the Cambrian Park Carousel sign, which is a beautiful, iconic feature, out onto Union Avenue, right adjacent to the park that comes out and touches the public street. So not only will you see it every day as you drive by it, but it'll also be part of this playground and park area. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sean.
I think that's all we have from a presentation standpoint. We wanted to keep it as short as possible to leave as much time for community dialogue. So I'll turn it back over to Laura, and you can guide us through.
All right, thanks, Ken, and thanks, Sean. I'm gonna then turn it over to Pat and Jennifer to get started on open forum. I wanted to remind everyone to press the raise hand button if you want to speak, or type your question into the Q&A feature, and we will read your question aloud and direct it to the appropriate staff member to answer. I have a timer here that I'll press to get the 2-minute timer.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Pat Kelly. I'm with the City of San Jose as well. And as Laura mentioned, we'll have 2 ways for you to comment. One is through typed comments and Q&A, and the other is through verbal comments that you can make through raising your hand in Zoom. So since we have about 12 initial typed comments, we'll go ahead and answer, or we'll kind of read out the first 5 from those and take care of those, and then we'll move on to 5 verbal comments, and then come back to our written questions. One other note too is, since we have so many people, 130 people, some of you have the same name. So if there was, you know, for example, if there's a gym 1 and a gym 2, just check your device and see if you are unmuted, and that means you are one of those two. If you're Jim 1, you'll be unmuted and you'll be able to speak. So I think that's the best way we can handle that. It only happens in a few instances, so I think we'll be okay there. Okay, so I'll be reading these questions and comments, and as appropriate, referring them to the appropriate staff or the developers. So the first comment we have is by Dennis Deschamps. I hope I said that right. Dennis wanted to be sure that we received this letter and it will be part of the record. Yes, Mr. Shampoo, it will be. So the next comment, and I'm gonna, because some of these are rather lengthy, I want to, I'll probably paraphrase these if I just for brevity's sake. So next comment is by Steve Nessel, who says he has lived on Wyrick Avenue for the past 37 years, has seen all the changes occurring in the neighborhood and on the plaza, has participated in many of the meetings, and believes that while the project may not meet everyone's complete wishes, the developers made significant modifications, and the design is accommodates the community's needs and is supportive of the project. Okay. Next question is from Tina Diegnan. Question is, why are notifications being sent to 1,000 feet? I live on Wyrick Avenue, and it appears this limits updates to our neighborhood directly behind the plaza. I'll just quickly answer that question. The 1,000 feet is based on the city's public outreach policy that for large projects or projects of significant public interest, that we mail out notices to 1,000 feet. And that's, so we were consistent across all of our projects. But there are other ways to stay informed. If you want to email Laura Miners, she'll be having your email displayed at the end of this presentation, and she can add you to a list of interested persons. So I'll answer two more. A question, oh, she may have left the meeting, but I'll read it anyway. Linda Lizote says she'll have to leave the meeting since there's only 2 minutes to talk and the overview has been heard several times, which takes too much time away from community input. Okay, acknowledge that. I'm sorry about that. And our fifth in the group will be for a question by Richard Sanders. Will the jewelry store be offered a place to work? And I refer that question to Sean or Ken.
Yeah. It's Sean Morley. I'll answer it really quick.
Okay.
You know, obviously, we're quite a ways away from actual development. And so our hope and desire is that existing tenants will continue to operate at the site. We recognize that that has become very difficult in a COVID environment, but Weingarten is trying to work with tenants to make that as easy as possible. As for the future, you know, we've obviously designed the site to accommodate smaller retail opportunities. Much from what we heard from the community, our sincere hope is that a number of the tenants will be able to make the transition with us as time goes on. We do have a challenge in that the site would ultimately be demolished. And so our expectation is that some tenants, even if they want to return, will you know, need to relocate for a period of time. Again, that would not be able to be accommodated in all likelihood on site. We have not started those discussions with anybody yet, but I expect that that will occur as time goes on through this process.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Piozza to take some of our call-in or verbal questions.
Thanks, Pat. All right, so Jennifer Piozza, I'm with the Urban Village Planning Team with San Jose, and I was the former project manager, so some of you may recognize me. So we're going to take the first call-in person with the raised hand. The way that this works is if you raised your blue hand, either if you're calling in by your phone by pressing *9 or by raising, as is shown on the screen with a little blue hand or a white hand on the bottom of your screen, I will ask you to talk. When I allow you to talk, I'll say, you now have permission to talk, and you can unmute yourself and proceed. So just a reminder. So the first to speak is a phone number ending in 5140. Please unmute your device and speak. And since you're call-in user, please press *6 to unmute or press the unmute.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I think that this project's going to have to be probably redone again, because what are you going to do with high density housing and hotels? I mean, who's going to come visit to San Jose on business or pleasure or stay at a hotel? You're going to want to rethink the housing, because people are going to need more space and home offices to either work from home or go to school from home. I mean, the way we work and everything has completely changed. And I don't know how much, if you have enough space to do all these wonderful things. I mean, the Almaden Valley Ranch project was a disaster. You know, it's got fake grass, not enough parking. Parking slots are spaces are very, very small. And they wasted so much real estate. I don't know if this is going to be the same thing. I'm also not really excited about underground parking. That's kind of gross. And they want Hillsdale to have a road diet, really? They have a road diet leading into this place, Hillsdale to Camden and everything. It's not going to work. I just don't see this project being any. I think having a hotel is a complete joke. There's no reason to have a hotel. Who's going to go to it? Divorced people? I don't know. I don't know who on earth thought of a hotel, but you need to make that place functional for people. That means restaurants, bars, cafes, things that you could go outside for. You're going to have to rethink that too. You're going to have outdoor dining if in the age of this COVID thing. I mean, it's not. You tell me when the COVID paranoia is going to go away and all the rules and regulations. I mean, we have a governor that dictates what your Thanksgiving's supposed to be like. So you're going to have to rethink the whole project as far as I'm concerned. I think I'm calling it a folly and a flop, and it already looks like Dolesville to me. But I I understand the premise. The premise is good. The idea is good, but you're going to be glad you haven't started building it yet, because you're going to have to rethink it. And don't think you haven't thought about it, because you have.
All right,
because
thank
of
you.
what.
Any responses from the applicant team or Laura?
Thank him for his comment. I would just say that this plan was designed both before and during the beginning of COVID. And one of the reasons and one of the benefits of the large plaza that we have designed for retail, commercial, restaurant opportunities with immense outdoor dining and experiences. And it's really meant to be a people first development, less to the speaker's particular comment than just generally, because I think it'll come up with the open space. And we're all going to adjust to new COVID realities, but we are very comfortable that this plan is a stepping stone in the right direction, and we're very comfortable with the development from a market perspective.
Great, thank you. The next person to speak is Susan Landry. I've allowed you to speak. Please unmute your device, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that you guys have been doing since 2015. I thank to Councilwoman Foley for all her help, and for Mike and the community, Cambrian Community Council, everybody that's been involved. The project is far better than when it started. I actually live in Campbell on Kirtner Avenue. And currently, right now, when Santa Moss Expressway backs up, Kirtner becomes the cut through. I know when the Samaritan and North 40 projects came forward, they both talked about how they're going to impact the off-ramp at Santa Moss Expressway and actually Santa Moss Expressway itself. So I would like to see some assessment and review of the traffic, and then what mitigation will be provided to help slow down cars that currently right now are speeding on Kirtner Avenue. But as more and more cars use that as a cut through, the quality of our life here on Kirtner and Campbell is going to be diminished. I want to thank you guys for putting the carousel in a great, much better location than before. That is the gem of this neighborhood. It's iconic, it's historic. People used to say back in the day, meet me at the carousel. And so it's very nice that it has such a prominent location. I do think all the improvements to the drawings are to the benefit of the greater Cambrian, Kirtner area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any staff or applicant responses? Or I'll take the next one. Great, I see head shakes. I'll move on to the next. Thank you. Next up, we have Garnetta Annabelle. Please unmute your device.
Thank you. Let me see if I can.
We'll give you a second.
Okay. Okay.
Garnetta?
Yes, I'm here.
So how about we give you a second? I'm going to pick up the next person and we'll come to you next so you can figure out which device to turn off. That sound okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll come right back. All right, next we have Cindy. Please unmute your device.
All right, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Please start.
Excellent. Okay, I really like the redesign much better than the beginning. I'll say that as well. But my main concern is still there, which is the opening walkway back to Wyrick Avenue. I live on Wyrick right behind there, and I'm really concerned with the parking. If you ever go to Santana Row, everybody parks all over that little neighborhood in the back, no matter what it says. So I'm concerned about how you're going to address that. That's my number one concern, is that people are going to park in front of our houses, block our driveways, and walk that walkway.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
Any staff responses?
I mean, I think we have enough parking on site, just generally.
Yeah, just to follow up on Laura's comment, the site meets the parking standards of the municipal code, and there's quite a bit of parking provided within the center, and that will be, I think, the most convenient choice for people who want to travel to the site and visit the commercial and other facilities there. And this also dovetails with a question we have in the typed or the written comments, and which is, are there additional parking spaces for the single family homes? And each single family home is proposed to have 2 parking spaces. And there are parking areas in front of the homes along the street that will be able to accommodate guests and others who live there.
Thank you. All right, Garnetta, we're going to try again. You've been unmuted. You're allowed to speak. Please unmute. Garnetta Annabelle?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, perfect.
Okay,
Please
a couple of quick things. I wanted to know on Ken's drawings from the plaza viewing towards the buildings, the building like the assisted living had a step back so that it wasn't massively in it. I would hope that along Union and Camden, that the buildings could have a similar setback so that they wouldn't be so oppressive visually, because we're accustomed to seeing the low lines and the hillsides. Then the other comment was on the roadway through the residential section, consider making that below grade so that at least half of the garages could be below grade. And that way the height could come down so it wouldn't be 3 stories looking into the single family residences that are along there. I am concerned about the second light on Union Avenue because of traffic. And so I'm assuming that there'll be some mitigation on that. The other thing is that by having the below grade public street along the residential, you will have less cut through. So the traffic flow will be significantly different. Anyway, so thank you.
And I'd
Thank
like
you.
to add to that comment, another comment by Sheila in the written comments, also about concern about having 4+ story buildings, that we're not Santana Row, and the neighborhood should be considered.
Any responses before I take the last call in before we switch back?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one response would be for the height of the buildings, the general plan, which outlines the policies for development in urban village areas, requires at least 4 stories for commercial development. And that is because urban villages are intended to be more intensive, vibrant places that promote a lot of active use. And so the project is consistent with that policy. And as Laura mentioned earlier, that the project is designed to have the height of the buildings close to the streets and then grading down towards the single family neighborhoods. I don't know if I have a response to the below grade streets. Perhaps Public Works or DOT could respond to that, or the applicant team.
This is Sam with the Department of Public Works. So we don't, I mean, we're just taking comments right now, but in terms of below grade streets, that's something we can certainly take a look at. I know the caller mentioned about potential traffic impacts due to the new signal at Union. We are doing a traffic analysis, and as part of that traffic analysis, we will do a signal warrant study to see how it impacts the surrounding area, as well as that traffic analysis will evaluate any potential cut through traffic, and recommendations for mitigating those potential issues would be included as part of those recommendations in the report.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to take the last phone caller, or verbal caller, and switch back to Q&A. So next is, oh, I had one and they left. Okay, so Mark Chow. You are allowed to speak. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. I see on Chelsea Drive in the drawings, there's going to be a new signal there. And also, I like to note that this development is designated as pedestrian friendly. However, there are no crosswalks at Cameron Avenue and also further south on Dole Drive, basically on Union Avenue. There are 4 legs on each intersection, but there are only 2 crosswalks. So I'd like to know when the TIA, when we can expect the TIA, and also all the associated analysis on these intersections to make them all pedestrian friendly.
Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Perfect, thank you. Turn it back to staff.
Yeah, hi, this is Manjeet Benwait with the Department of Public Works. So as we mentioned, the traffic study is underway. We did initially scope it, but continue to send in your comments and your questions about just traffic related so that we can incorporate the comments here tonight within that study. So we will be taking a look at the pedestrian network in and around the site and seeing where potential missing links are. The timing of the report is, I don't have a tentative date yet for that because there's a lot of modeling that's required for the VMT, the actual CEQA portion of the study. And then along those lines, again, comments that I'm receiving tonight regarding traffic calming measures, studies of different streets adjacent to the project. We'll be taking a look at all of those, and so it is still being drafted. And so again, any of your comments tonight will be included into it. And then I did want to touch upon one of the other questions from the chat regarding COVID and how traffic data counts will be taken. So traffic data counts that are older than 2 years require new counts typically. And so that's our standard that we use. So as part of the analysis, we are taking a look at locations that require new count data. And again, given COVID, we are applying annual growth factors to account for increases in traffic during this time. Applying growth factors is a typical alternative to taking live counts. And so that's the approach that we'll be using, since we don't know obviously how long the situation will last. Thanks.
And just to follow on that, we did have about 2 or 3 others in the chat, as Manjeet mentioned, who asked questions about that. So we will consider those questions to be answered. Okay, moving back to Q&A. See, we answered a question about COVID. And we talked, there's a question about who the commercial tenants might be. I think we did address that question as well. It's not known yet. And see, a question from Nancy about concerned about traffic parking on Wyrick and the streets nearby behind Cambrian Plaza. Are there plans to only allow permit parking on those streets? People already cut through and go too fast. See if there's any other questions that I can find that are related to that. I don't see any right now, so maybe we could direct that question to Public Works or DOT.
Yeah, so again, any of the signals that are proposed by the project will be a part of the study, and we'll be taking a look at warrants for those signals, if they should be going in or not. Along Union Avenue, there are signals there that are owned by the county that we're looking into, that we also looked into with the Harker site to essentially take over the operations and maintenance of those, so that we can better coordinate those signals. So that's something that we'll be looking into again. And again, the Harker volumes, along with the assisted living facilities that are proposed by the school district, all those volumes will also be as part of the cumulative analysis and taken into consideration in the traffic analysis. Thanks.
Okay, so next question is a comment by Dennis that pictures do not resemble a village, as I understand the concept. Certainly not multi-floor. I want to check to see if there are other questions that are related to that. Maybe one by Carolyn. I'm curious to understand the type of commercial customers you plan to recruit to fill the commercial spaces, and how will all of this be impacted by COVID? So let's take those two together and maybe direct that question to the project applicants.
Ken, do you want to answer the question just about the design of the site related to commercial opportunities and how they're different from the prior one? And then I can re-answer the question about tenants.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone to go back to the first slide that I showed, which is our image slide, design goals. And you'll see when you take a look at that on the city's website that we really did research some successful projects that are in this same scale. Be slide number 1, please. And you can see these European villages that we have looked at are very similar in height, in scale, change of materials. these are villages. These are villages in various downtowns of the different European cities that our office has reviewed. And I think that it's very consistent with that, where we've got a lot of outdoor seating area. We've got multi-story buildings. We have lower scale buildings that blend really nicely with them. We change materials. I like to use a multiple variety of materials to, again, give it that village feel that it was built at different times, which I think is really an interesting concept. And again, I would just encourage you to study the drawings and then look at it with that in mind. And I think you'll see where our imagery has come from.
And I think I mentioned earlier just some general commentary about COVID and the design of this really occurring during the early phases of the pandemic. Weingarten, as I think most know, is a national company with many retailers across the country. I think it's fair to say that they're at the cutting edge of trying to figure out solutions for what retail will look like in the future. I don't think anybody can say today exactly what that's going to be like, but we very, very comfortably believe that this design can, lay the groundwork and create the opportunity for doing that. This European village concept has stood the test of time in European cities for centuries, and we think it will do the same here. But we've created a lot of very small buildings and small retail opportunities to create a local feel rather than large format retail opportunities you might find in a traditional retail center, which is something that we heard very directly from the community. And so we're going to look forward as we get a little further into this process to start to look at what actual retailers may be going in here. It's just very early in the process for us to be thinking about that, much less secure any arrangements with any particular groups. But we look forward to having that discussion with the community as time goes on.
One more set of questions before we go back to the Zoom attendees. Questions about breaking ground. Is there a timeline for when the project will start and complete? Question, that was a question by Asif. And Howie also asked that question, and Vicky asked the question, and also about timeline for breaking ground and possible deposits to purchase townhomes and single family homes. We'll direct that to Sean.
Yeah. Well, we wish we were in the place where we could take reservations for townhomes and houses. The state of California does not, unfortunately, allow us to do it quite so quick. But duly interested, your interest is duly noted, and at the appropriate time, feel free to contact us again. Our expectation is, and this is obviously to be determined just through the rollout of the community process as well as the technical planning, but that we are review and approval process with the city, we hope will conclude in 2021. Presuming that's the case, we have 6 months to a year of very specific design work for building permits, but our hope and expectation is that sometime in late 2022, if everything goes properly, we could be in a position to start work on the site, and then obviously move forward with the development, which will occur in phases. But we'd like to do that in an orderly fashion to deliver a whole development for the community, obviously with the corner building as well as the open space, we hope, which would be a high first phase priority.
Great, thank you. We're going to switch back over to our call-in users. So next up, we have K. Sundaram. I apologize if I am mispronouncing your name. You are now allowed to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, you can hear me?
Yes, please begin.
Okay, I'm going to do this fast because I have several things to bring up. So number one, I want to know about what this is going to do to the sewage and utility capacity in our neighborhood. I want to make sure that this does not reflect improvements in our property taxes so that somehow we're taxed more for it. Number two, I'm a member of St. Francis Cabrini and I have real concerns about this. I go to morning mass at 8:30. It is a school. And you're only talking about one side of Woodward, but right across from Woodward, down the street, is St. Francis Cabrini. It is a part of our community, and I think it needs proper attention. I'm finding that it's harder to get to Mass on time because if you put more lights up and all that stuff, it's much harder. And I don't want to be in the car for 15 minutes, what takes me now about 7 minutes. Number three, I am from Santa Clara County. My brothers used to pick the trees, the orchards of Santa Clara County. There are a lot of trees there, but I really want to see fruit trees because I think it brings back the attention to how our valley was created. And I would like to see more California mission style or whatever, because I really don't like the idea of calling us an urban whatever. I think we should be called a Cambrian Park Plaza or Cambrian Park Town. I think we want to bring this back to what Cambrian Park is, because that's one of the reasons we live here. I would also like to see affordable coffee shops. These shops seem rather upscale and they'll be expensive. And even the donut shop had to shut down. And I want to be able to just go buy a cup of coffee after Mass. And it's very hard because coffee shops tend to get shut down. Number five, I want to know if there's going to be a police station there because you have a lot of older people. They could be targets. And I want to make sure that the crime is a consideration, that we are safe. Number six, I'd like to see, what about childcare? We need more childcare access, especially if people have their parents in assisted living and all that. It'd be very nice if we consider their needs and make it more family friendly. So those are all my points, but especially please, I want to know that St. Francis Cabrini is not going to be cut off and it's going to be even harder to get there. I don't want to go a circuitous route in order to get to Mass every morning. And there are families there. Thanks.
Thank you. Staff or applicant?
This is Tiffany Pong with Public Works. I can answer the first question about the sewer capacity. We will be working with our sanitary sewer group to evaluate any sewer deficiencies along the project frontages. And if there are any deficiencies that are identified, Public Works will make the necessary recommendations and conditions for the projects, such as upsizing of the existing mains, if required.
And just thank you for the feedback on the desired tendencies, and I'm sure the applicants will take that into account as they do their leasing and marketing.
We took good notes on that one. Thanks, Karen.
Perfect. So next up, we have Marcia Tamner, excuse me. You're allowed to speak. Please unmute.
Thank you for taking my call. I want to say that the plan looks very attractive. My biggest concern in all the meetings I've attended has been the height of the buildings, especially the hotels. It's interesting that in the meetings, nobody from the city or planning ever mentioned that. I think Patrick said that 4 stories is the minimum for this kind of development. If you look at Santana Row, it's huge, it's tall, but everything around it is tall. It's across from Valley Fair. There are a lot of business buildings. We have nothing in the area except a 2-story building on Union Avenue, the medical supply. If you stand and you look at that corner of Camden and Union with the projected buildings, it looks huge. So if 4 is the minimum, I think we should stay with 4. We have nothing around it that's that tall. Even the Union Plaza, the taller buildings of the market are farther back. My other concern is traffic. Camden is extremely busy. If they do a count, now, of course, it's not nearly as busy. It is increasing, but I think it's going to bring a great deal of traffic. And if Camden's reduced in the number of lanes, I can't imagine what it would be like. And those of us that live in the neighborhood have to use Camden frequently. So that's really my big concern, is traffic and the height of the building. I can't imagine coming along there and looking at how tall those buildings on the Camden site are going to be. Way out of place, it seems to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any response from staff or applicant?
Yeah, I think the concerns about height and traffic have been addressed prior, and just coming back to maybe prior comments we've made about the vision of the general plan for urban village areas. This area, urban villages develop slowly over time, but this area was identified as a place for a commercial center urban village, which is intended to take advantage of sites that are, kind of ripe for redevelopment and create a vibrant center for places that maybe not have one of those right now. They're kind of distributed throughout the city. And as time goes on, we do expect to see more of that in the Cambrian area. Specifically, just want to point out the general plan, which is adopted by the city council with many lots of community outreach and over a long period of time to identify what the desired land uses are for the city. We have a policy in the general plan that basically states to support intensive development and uses within urban village while ensuring their appropriate interface with lower intensity development in surrounding areas and protection of historic resources. So we do believe that the plans respond to that policy by having a lower intensity use adjacent to the single family residences behind and more intense uses at the front.
Great, thank you. Next is Carl N. Please unmute and speak.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you guys on what looks like a really fantastic looking development. My specific questions were around timeframe stuff, and I think you've answered that pretty well, but I do want to be a voice for, I don't know, in support of the project. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better. This stuff that's there now is old and busted, and the dragging on that this project has been taking is killing all the businesses that were there to begin with. So we're left with something that's even worse in the meantime. I would really like to see this get fast-tracked as much as possible. I know a lot of people are concerned about traffic. I live right around the corner on Charmaran Ave. I'm not that concerned myself. People use our street as a high-speed thoroughfare all the time already. But the city bike plan seems like it's got hooks in it to really improve a lot of that stuff and add traffic mitigation. I'm very bullish on the whole thing. I would just like to see it get started sooner.
Thank you. Any response? Or are we good? Great. Next up is Amanda Ryan. You are allowed to talk. Please unmute your device.
Great, thank you. So I live a few blocks from the development. It's right off Charmaran, and I want to see this good kind of density that is shown in the new design. It's something that I see as being inclusive and affordable for all income levels. I would love for my dad to be able to live by us, and I think that this could be an opportunity for him to do that. I think this development also gives us an opportunity to move away from designing around cars, which even going to Santana Row is frightening with kids. Nobody is paying attention, and I think that having underground parking and very few surface parking spaces is so needed and wanted, at least for me, being a mother of 2 kids, taking them to a destination for the neighborhood, which in the designs is so welcoming and inviting, and someplace that I want to be and want my kids to grow up having fond memories of being able to walk there to this development that is something that we can all be proud of. And I think the height limit is not a concern for me. I think that having the single family homes along the border is a great idea. I like the park that's by the entrance to Wyrick. I think this is a really good redesign. And that's all.
Thank you. Any responses? Or I'll go to the last.
I would just say, Amanda, you know, when we tried to re-envision the site redesign, it was all the things that you said. So thank you for making the comment, and I think doing a better job of it than we have.
Perfect. So we'll take the 5th comment before you go back to the written Q&A. Larry C., you are allowed to talk. Please unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, so as a resident who lives over off Taper Avenue, it looks like in the one site plan, it shows a light there at Taper and Camden, but in the rendering, it doesn't show the light. So I'm assuming there's a light there. We currently have a problem where people are using Taper Avenue as a cut through from Camden to Union. And I think, you know, once this project is in, that's going to increase quite a bit, you know, especially if people are coming out of the project, coming straight across onto Taper and then going through the neighborhoods to get over onto Union as a shortcut. So I'd like to know, the question is, I'd like to know if something's going to be done about that. Speed bumps, some sort of traffic mitigation, signage or something so that doesn't happen. And then as a quick comment, 4 stories to me should be max. I think the 6 stories you got in some of those spots is way too high. So I'd like to see it kept at 4 stories max. Thank you.
Back to you, Patrick.
So yeah, I think we've addressed the traffic questions before. If not, Manjeet, please correct me. And we've also talked about the heights for this area. Also, just wanted to let everyone know that, you know, since we have about 75, we've had probably about 100 written questions, and a lot of them are very similar. So if you see me indicating your questions have been answered, that is because it has been asked by another similar question, and your questions are being tracked through this process, and we have a record of your questions. So, you know, if there are 5, 6, 7 questions about the same topic, we'll know that there were several people interested. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. So not to be concerned if your specific question might not have been answered, but it was answered in a prior response. Okay, so going back to question haven't heard yet by John Carderis. Will outdoor music be allowed? Maybe that's a 2-part answer. One for what is how we handle that through city staff review, and the other part might be from the owners to see if that's part of the plan. So maybe I'll defer to Sean first.
Ken, you want to take that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's our goal to be able to create a really lively space here to encourage outdoor concerts. And when I say concerts, I'm talking about something that's of neighborhood scale and consistent with the zoning code. In our application, we have said we would like to have outdoor farmers market. Sometimes you have music vendors that end up playing at those, which are really encouraged and help just enliven the entire experience. And likewise at this park area, we need to be sensitive not only to the existing neighborhood, but to the new neighborhood that we're creating as well, with the single family and even the townhomes, and in particular, the seniors. So we've got a lot of competing stakeholders that we need to be sensitive to. But I think what we would like to also hear from is the city. We will answer that question specifically within the application as time goes on and prior to our public hearing as well.
Great. And to respond on the city side, the project will include a list of allowable uses in commercial zones, and typically one of those uses is outdoor activity. And so that would be evaluated as part of the environmental review, and also by city staff to kind of identify where those uses will be relative to the sensitive uses, both on-site and off-site. And we can have the ability to regulate hours of operation, frequency, et cetera. Maybe parks, we have park staff here who might be able to respond to activities that might take place in a public park. I think, is Rebecca Ross with us?
I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, this is Rebecca Ross with the city's Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services Department. Yes, so we will engage the community in a master planning process for any public parks that are on the site. And during those meetings, we would like to hear from the community what types of programming and design you would like to have. So we will, that's a future process after the approval of the project.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Any plans to incorporate solar panels for green energy into the project?
Ken?
John or Ken?
Yeah, I can say that we will be, this project will be a LEED silver level project, which has lots of different energy saving elements to it. It's typically a long list of things that we look at. That is certainly one of them, but there are many, many more. And I think from our standpoint, we've committed to building a LEED silver project. And so that will be on the list of things that we look at as to meet that rating.
Okay. Another question that might be good for Ken or Sean: how does the commercial square footage compare to other urban villages like Santana Row? Any chance there's a space big enough for a small anchor store like Trader Joe's?
Well, right now the current design allows any multiples of different sizes of tenants. I think the nice thing about the flexibility of that plan is once the project has gone through this process and the community gives a lot of their ideas for the types of tenants, which I encourage you to do, then we can sort of hone down with the Wine Garden leasing team and try to figure out where those would fit and where within the project. But I think all options are on the table. That's a pretty good larger size tenant for this project. Initially, when we came before the community, we proposed initially a larger grocery store, which I think is of a different scale, and it was more traditional neighborhood center. I think this becomes sort of more specialty tenants, like what you just asked about.
Great. And I'll kind of combine two similar questions, one by Oscar and Nadine. These are questions about privacy to the single family residences behind this site. And also a question by Alex Shore, similar question about, actually, that's not that question. Let's see. Question about just how does the city propose to help maintain the privacy to those residences? The answer to that question is the project will be subject to the city's residential design guidelines. Currently, the guidelines do not require a 45-degree step back for single family homes, which is what these will be. And we are in the process of evaluating the architectural design and massing of the homes. The plans don't currently include that level of detail, so we're going to be asking about that And we do have the ability through the plan development process to work to, there might be options for step backs or other things that we can do for the third floor, landscaping, trees, things like that. So that will be something that we do evaluate. All right, so I'll pass it back to Jennifer for our next group of call-in.
Perfect. Thanks, Pat. All right. Next up, we have Joseph Jemmy. Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher your last name. I apologize. But Joseph G, you are now allowed to speak. Please unmute. Joseph, if you're still with us, you're allowed to speak.
Hello? Oh, hello?
Yes. Hello. Please begin.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I
worries.
was very, yeah, I also like the plan a lot more. I think it's a much better design. I mainly want to talk about, I guess, architecture. I have lived in Europe a couple of times, once in England, once in Italy. And I like a lot of this project. I just wish maybe the senior component and the hotel component still seem a little bit modern to me, not that inviting. I'd rather see something that incorporates like arch windows, maybe a little bit more roof articulation. And like one of the ladies said, like a Mission or early California design, maybe like the Hotel Californian in Santa Barbara. When you go to Europe, like a lot of those drawings that you saw, a lot of them they don't have flat roofs. They have either tile or slate roofing. And most of the old villages I've seen are either a clay tile or like I said, slate in Northern Europe. And I don't see a lot of that in some of this. A lot of it still looks flat to me. And I don't want it to look like that. You know, I'm glad it doesn't look like that project on 85 in Santa Teresa, the old IBM area where Lowe's is and stuff like that. So again, I'd like to see some roof articulation. I hope the city planners don't take that out. Something like Main Street in Santa Clara or the Napa downtown where they revitalized it. It's kind of a Mediterranean feel that looks really beautiful. Again, no flat tops and a flat facade. I'd like to see some maybe recessed windows, some arch windows, and some incorporation of style and tile and stone and stuff like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Laura?
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. Sorry, I had to stop the counter and then unmute myself. Yeah, Joseph, we've had several email communications about that. We are analyzing the project against the residential design guidelines. We also have an outside architectural consultant reviewing the project through the urban design review process. I understand your feeling that the architecture looks maybe too contemporary or too modern. We're looking at that, and right now this meeting is for the purpose of gathering all your community comments. So this will definitely be noted, as far as the architectural style goes, the only thing I can say is it has to meet the design guidelines.
And to build a little bit on what Laura mentioned, that the design guidelines don't prescribe any specific styles, but they do talk about the very things that you mentioned, variation of roof forms, changes in plane, changes in color and materials, yet something that also isn't too busy. So we have engaged an architectural firm to help advise us in that regard. So that process is ongoing.
Great, we'll take the next question. So the next up is Philip Poppenfuss. You are now allowed to speak. Please unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I heard others voice their concerns about the building heights. And I also wanted to voice my concern about that. I do think that 6-story buildings would be too tall. But I also wanted to ask, is there a possibility that plans can be revised so that they would be changed and there would be a maximum building height of 4 stories?
Any other questions before we get to answers?
Nope, I just wanted to know about that, if there were a possibility that the plans could be changed.
Perfect, thank you. We'll answer. Staff?
Yeah, well, because as I kind of relayed before, the general plan holds 4 stories as a minimum in order to create the vibrant urban feeling of the urban village. And it's also been pointed out in our previous discussions, kind of internally, we've talked about it. And, you know, kind of the lower you keep the building heights, the more of the site is actually covered. And so there's not the opportunity for a lot of these great open spaces that are proposed as part of the project, like the commercial plaza and the fairly extensive amount of park strips and plazas. So that's the reason why we wouldn't recommend a lower height than 4.
Great. Next up is Christine Kuvaris. You are allowed to speak. Please unmute. Christine Kuvaris, please unmute.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm a resident directly behind on Burkhaw, and a couple of comments regarding the building height for the homes. One is, if you've ever directly gone and looked down into people's backyards in this neighborhood, you might notice that they are very multi-purpose, and they are not necessarily the pretty backyard that a 3-story home, perhaps somebody paying over $1 million, may want to look down into. And while there's privacy concerns for us having people looking down, I think at the same time, one element that should be considered is, you know, what will people be looking at? And they'll be looking at a beautiful park on one side, and they may be looking at a contractor's backyard on the other end. So I think there's, you know, multiple concerns with regard to the building height, and, you know, it works both ways for the people that are buying and the people that are here as well. And the 3-story building height appears to have a really sharp angle when it looks down into the homes. I think it was close to like a 60-degree angle. And I was just wondering, from the standpoint of what is the maximum angle that can be taken with regard to the building height?
Thank you, Christine. Staff?
Like we mentioned before, you're right about the 45-degree plane applying to multifamily attached residences, but for single family, we don't have a specific angle that we look at. We just look more at the design of the rear of the building to see, you know, how it's sort of broken up, and maybe step back a little bit at the top. There is a height limit that is being kind of a draft height limit of 30 feet, and also landscaping proposed along the rear. So while it is a change, this more kind of intense single family residence road just sort of acts as a transition from the large single family to the urban village concept, which is meant to be kind of intense. It does encourage kind of more intense housing. So that's how we plan to address it.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have Alex Shore. Please unmute and begin.
Good evening, this is Alex Shore. I'm Executive Director of Catalyze SV. Want to thank the city and council member Foley for helping lead this public engagement, and thank Weingarten for making improvements to their project over the last year to accommodate and account for the community's perspectives. Definitely agree that this is a better project than what we've seen previously. I was raised in Saratoga. Both of my grandparents came here and raised there. children, my parents in this valley. And I just want to address a little bit this concept of our changing valley. And I think back to my grandparents who moved here when there were orchards for many, many miles. And I wonder what would have happened to my grandparents and my parents if the people who had been here before them, when this was the Valley of the Heart's Delight, had said that Silicon Valley wasn't allowed to occur, that all the single family homes that came to Cambrian area and to other parts of our valley weren't allowed because they didn't like them and because they didn't fit with their notion of what the neighborhood should be and should look like. And as we accept the change that's coming to our area, I just want to reflect on that fact that our neighborhoods are always changing and change can be good. And right now we need lots of homes in our city. We have an affordable housing crisis. The author Richard Florida finds that San Jose has the worst income inequality of any major city in the country. So we need to be providing more opportunities for people and allowing some change to occur. And the more homes we can build in our community, including at higher heights, the more we can address these issues that are preventing other people from having the opportunities that we all had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Staff, anything to respond or are we good? Patrick, if you're talking, you're muted.
I don't have anything. We do have some questions about low-cost housing. Will there be any low-cost housing in the development? Maybe that could be part of a response by developers, how they're planning to meet the city's affordable housing.
Let me field that one. So for those on the call who don't know, the City of San Jose has a number of requirements for affordable housing, which are ever changing, and to create more affordable housing opportunities. This development will have a requirement for that, both for the family housing as well as the apartments. We'll have to provide a very detailed plan for how we intend to comply with that. It's usually either providing the affordable housing opportunity, which is anywhere from 15 to 20% on site, or to pay a fee to ensure that affordable housing can be built elsewhere in the city when those funds are aggregated with other developments. We are obviously wanting to do our part for the housing crisis in Silicon Valley. As you see, we have increased the number of units on this site by a little bit. We think it's appropriate for the scale of the property and for traffic. We will have an affordable component, but we are still trying to figure that out. Candidly, as we noted earlier in the media, we wanted to invite community comment about that. We've heard a little bit tonight, and we look forward to hearing additional comments about how people might want us to meet the obligation of the city's ordinances as we go forward here. But I do expect sometime in the new year that we'll be submitting a formal plan to the city for how we intend to comply.
Great, thank you. We're going to take our last call in before we switch back to Q&A. Steve Lynch, please unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes, perfect.
Hi, my name is Steve Lynch, a 20-year San Jose resident of this area. Hey, I just want to say that I was thinking about the 6-story height limits. I had to go out to Santana Row last week and just sort of walk around and remind myself what it looked like. And I hadn't quite realized that, a significant majority of Santana Row is 5 stories. And the center portions of it are actually 7 stories high. And it's funny because when we're sort of walking on the ground plane, we don't realize, because we're really focusing on what's in front of us in the first 20 feet, that, how tall those buildings are. And so I walked back into the neighborhood behind it, which is primarily single family, single story, couple of new 2 stories. It's called the Villas back there. It's a Santa Clara neighborhood. It's off Monroe by Frank Santana Park. And when you're back there, you really don't get the sense of what Santana Row is in terms of the activity, the noise, even the height that's back there. And that's primarily because they've fronted the residential on the back side. So I want to applaud the applicant here as well as the architect for going to great lengths to front that neighborhood and give some neighborhood protection in terms of the single family homes in the back, pushing the density out to the street, which is really where it should be. And I think the residents of that neighborhood, if they go out and look at Santana Row, you know, take a couple hours, stroll around the neighborhood. I think they're going to find the same thing that I did, is that it's not going to have a huge impact to our neighborhood in terms of heights, in terms of density, but it is going to have a great impact to our neighborhood, at least in terms of new uses. And finally, in the last 10 seconds, I will say, as a 12-year coach of baseball, hope the applicant can at least reach out to Charlie Rose and see if they can find a way to bring them back into the new project. That would be much appreciated. And thank you so much to city staff.
Thank you, Steve. Any responses?
Thanks for the comment. We focused a lot on design in that first 20 feet and creating the experience that we heard very loud and clear from community members over a couple of years about what they hoped to achieve in terms of a place and a destination, which Councilmember Foley spoke about at the beginning of this meeting and you know, has given us guidance about from a community standpoint. I hope we achieved it. And I personally do agree with your comments about the height considerations. I know it's in the eye of the beholder, and we certainly respect community members' views about it that may be differing. I do want to just echo Patrick's commentary. It is very difficult to achieve the minimum city requirements for the site from an urban planning perspective, and you know, the community desires as well as our own business needs. We've been really trying to find a way to triangulate those three objectives. I think we've done it here. You know, time will tell, and we really do appreciate all of the comments that we've gotten so far.
Jennifer, could I just comment on that too? I think that I really appreciate all the comments that we've heard tonight. They help make the project better. And, you know, Steve, I appreciate your comment about looking at Santana Row. And I'd like to point out another thing about that is even when you walk down the main street of Santana Row and around Santana Row, there's not a lot of community open space. And I would encourage the public to combine visually. It's hard to do, and maybe we need to help with some 3D modeling or rendering, but try to imagine this 7 acres of open space that we have, which is so significantly more than what Santana Row has. And buildings, as the last speaker, Steve, said, in some cases are lower, and in some cases certainly taller than the surrounding neighborhoods and buildings that have been built on Camden and Union. But I would say this, with high quality architecture, with some of the other comments that have been made here by residents of recessed windows, of balconies, of changing materials, all that goes into helping bring the scale of this project down. And as Sean mentioned, we have to meet the city's minimum standards of the amount of housing we provide here. And I think we've done it in a creative way, and we certainly have exceeded the amount of open space that's required by the city. So thank you.
Okay, so moving on to Q&A, we have several questions on the concept of the European village. I'll read a few to get a feel for what those are. Let's see, sorry about the traffic noise in the background. I live near an active train line. Okay, one question is, will the tree roses that I remember from 50 years ago be incorporated? So hold answer to that until we get a few more of these. You could answer that as part of some other questions we have. Let's see. I know there's several about the European village concept. Yes, your sample picture of the European plazas were great, but that's because the surrounding buildings were mostly 2 to 3 stories tall. Ours will be 6 stories tall, which will not provide such a nice open experience. Can we reduce the apartment height to 3 to 4 stories? There is a question about, let's see. I think the European villages cited have no context. In Europe, there's much better public transportation infrastructure. And the other comment was that the slide we showed only has 3 and 4 story buildings. So maybe we could go back to that slide to show, to kind of clearly go back over what the building height is proposed to be. Okay. For those to Sean or Ken.
Sorry, I did not catch the first one.
Oh,
Tree roses. I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, definitely. Where they're going to be in the project. They show on the landscape plan, and something I remember too. I was born and raised here, and love that part of the original shopping